Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today is March 30th, 2020, and we have just a little show for you here to round out the month. So obviously things are not proceeding in a oh, it's just the flu fashion, are they? So as we continue to hunker down here, it'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks how various policies by various governments affect uh, our ability to more or less acquire things rather than anything else. Right now, we're looking at Hong Kong pretty much reducing their postal service right now to surface mail and EMS only. What this does for most of us who would buy resin pieces and parts from places like Zoomon, 8181, um, and other Hong Kong-based retailers, Plamos, they are still in business. They haven't done anything new, but Plamos still does sell stuff. Um, that gives you the ability basically only to have things sent via surface, which is literally, all jokes aside, the slow boat from China at this point. We're talking about transit times in 1.5 months rather than 1.5 weeks where the airmail would be, because for some reason Hong Kong's airmail system turns into ground service here in the United States. So while the parcel will get from Hong Kong to the United States in 2 to 3 days, it then will take another 5+ days to get you delivered because it starts getting treated like third-class mail for some reason around here, at least in my personal experience in the last several months. EMS, again, is available, but most places are not offering it directly because it is very, very expensive unless you plan to stuff a box. You guys know that obviously I get big boxes of stuff here, and I do that by shipping via EMS because EMS is a weight by volume equation, so you can tend to stick a lot of stuff into a box for uh, what ends up being a fairly reasonable per unit shipping cost. And what I mean by per unit is like per kit. If I ship like 5 kits, I'm going to pay like 40 some dollars in shipping, so it ends up being less than $10 a kit, which oftentimes is less than you would pay to ship a kit within the United States using priority mail. So, um, keep that in mind if you're ordering for things. Frankie over SK Decals, again, and other places in Hong Kong, EMSing a set of decals is going to cost you like $40 because EMS starts at a very high rate, but again, you can pack a box. Um, Really, probably the only place that EMS in Hong Kong is really a viable solution at this point would be someplace like a Hobby Easy, where you could buy 2, 3, 4 kits to get into that $40 box to make the $40 box not cost $40 as much as it would be just $10 per box, $10 per kit, and that's probably not a bad shipping rate. So keep that in mind for Hong Kong. Um, We've also seen, postal issues with several European countries, especially the hardest hit ones like Italy, Spain, Germany, the UK, where the mail systems are not shipping out internationally. The mail systems have stopped working entirely due to, quarantining issues. Uh, it is just a matter of just sort of hanging out and waiting for things to get better. A number of businesses like Zero Paints and things like that have stopped their their business anyway. The only sort of bright side we saw to anything here in the United States was that Tamiya USA reopened their online store. Um, but I don't know that necessarily means that they reopened their warehouse as far as shipping and receiving goes. Obviously, they're shipping out their online stuff, but I don't know if that's their big main warehouse being open or just having a few people in it on staggered shifts, so there's never more than 5 people in it. Um, and what that does for receiving new kits like the Mustang GT4, which was supposed to come out this month or early May, depending on who's you're listening to, and is effectively like sort of stuck because even if they could get it here, there's nobody there to receive it. But now the online store is open and they are taking orders for in stock merchandise, but again, I don't know what that would really filter down to in terms of new merchandise being added to that store. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much the situation as it stands right this instant. And yeah, we'll keep you up to date the best we can. I'm not going to get into the whole uh, good, bad, ugly, evil of the actual situation or the politics involved. That's not what we do here, but just keep you up to date on the things that directly affect the hobbies. So one thing we do have to look forward to, however, was a flyer that Revell put out this week, and It is delaying several kits that were supposed to come out in April until July. That doesn't seem at all unreasonable at this point, but it does show that at least they um, are still, working on things, and assuming everything falls the right way, perhaps we will have some things to deal with this summer. So let's take a look at that flyer real quick here. Several of these things are things we've talked about in the past, but the addition down there on the bottom left of the 62 Impala is something new to this list. So starting up on top there, new tooling is a sort of debatable term, as it is not all new tooling. It is just pieces and parts of new tooling. The Dom 71 GTX, for instance, is going to have a stock and custom wheel options, stock and custom tire options, and then lowered suspension. So there are some new parts. Again, they're added to that kit, being the wheels, tires, and the lowered suspension that were not in the original monogram kit. That kit really has its roots in the Plymouth Satellite from the 1980s. Over there on the other new tooling, of course, this is a much more newer tooling, as it is the 69 Chevelle from the 68 tooling. You're going to have the 69 specific body grill, bumper, interior pieces, engine parts. There are red pinstripe decals, and there are supposedly Tampo printed Firestone tires. If that is legitimate, that would be the first time, I think, maybe other than the 50 Oldsmobile, and I don't necessarily think the 50 Oldsmobile's Tampo printed tires were branded, that Revell would have a branded tire back for the first time since maybe 1998 or so, excluding the NASCAR kits. And I'm not even sure the NASCAR kits after 1998 had tire decals. We've all witnessed them obliterate tire detailing off tires that they still use. They've made new tires so they don't have to worry about the tire sidewall details. So if there's Tampo printed Firestones, that would be a major sort of, how about that, out of Revell. So the other two kits you have here are the 62 Impala. They're calling it a 3-in-1 now. They're offering it as basic stock, dragged, and lowered. The lowered version is the Foose kit, basically. So the 62 Impala is a 2-in-1 from the jump. The original kit from, 4 or 5 years ago at this point, it was stock and drag, and then they made the Foose version of it. So this is going to be all of those parts. It's saying the part count is 182, and so there's nothing new about that kit. It is just a recombination of things to make a 3-in-1. So everybody who's always been belly aching about the fact that they don't get enough parts in their kits, you can calm down. And then you have the El Camino, which is a 3-in-1, and it is going to include both the camper top and the tonneau cover, as well as having the 3 complete sets of wheels and tires. And then there's a whole bunch of custom and stock parts and turbocharged engine options and things like that. But those have always been in the El Camino kit. Just interested to see that come back around. I don't think it's been out since the boat series, where Revell did all those bass boats attached to trucks. So the Ramchargers come back out of that. The El Camino's back out of that. And I think there's one more that was in that series, if I remember rightly. So there's that. Two things that are not on that list that are on the Stevens list, and I've seen a couple other mentions of it, is there is a reissue plan for the Revell, what do they call it, the Auto Transport Trailer. That's that 1980s car hauler. It had a reissue back in like 2012, 2013, somewhere in there, I want to say. So that's getting another run, and they're also going to be doing another run of the Cadillac Lowrider. I don't know why it wasn't on that list. That's a fairly significant kit in the sense that it always sells out every time they do a reissue of it. But they are going to be doing another run of that. Not quite an 80, not quite a 90, because it's custom and there's parts from both years. Coupe de Ville lowrider. I know the lowrider community will actually really be excited for a change. Sometimes say, "Oh, it's lowrider stuff." The lowrider community will be happy, and yeah, I don't think they're really that thrilled. But I know that that Cadillac is always well received. Now, if you guys can keep from panic buying it out of stock within like the first week, that'd be great. So that pretty much covers that. I'm trying to think if there's anything that was popping up anywhere else. I really don't think so. Everything else is pretty much status quo. So we have 2 kit releases this week, and they are both overseas, both Tamiya kits actually. So they're getting out their March kits basically. First up, you have this. It is the reissue of the Toyota Celica XX2800 GT. This is the JDM version of this kit. Remember, the US, the Celica Supra with the Long Beach Grand Prix livery and markings is coming back out next month. So at least in Japan, I don't know when we're going to get it here actually shipped in the United States, but in Japan it's going to be released this month in April. The kit is pretty basic, very, very basic motorized. You do get a figure. This is one of the ones that has the little flipper lever on the underneath the bumper to flip the lights up and down, so they technically work. The third gen, the Mark III Supra, its headlights are positionable, but they're not actually connected to anything to actually flip them up and down. You have to flip those up and down yourself manually. Anyway, this is back out. It's pretty, old kit. It's from the 1980s. Chances are you've probably seen one of these already. If you haven't, it's a very, 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 very basic kit, but it's probably proportion-wise the best of the Celica Super kits. And when you start dealing with like chassis and interior and things like that, they're all pretty lousy because of their origins. And then the other release this week is this, and this is something that has been out in the United States since the beginning of March, although you may not have noticed because it didn't get a lot of fanfare, is the Mazda Roadster RF, or as we call it, the Mazda MX-5 RF here in the United States. There is a bunch of new parts to this, probably actually I think there's two parts runners if you don't count the body. There's one parts runner that has the wheels on it, as well as the hard top roof pieces and a couple other pieces, and there's another one that has there's I think 15 new parts of this all told, not counting the body. The body itself, there's a brand new body shell in here with the flying buttresses already in place. Basically, the only thing you're doing decision-wise within this is deciding whether or not you want the top on or the top off. It is the way they've engineered it, kind of dodgy as to whether or not you could swap back and forth because of the way the roof assembles with the panel on, and the way the roof is, the buttresses assemble without the panel on. When you take the roof off this thing, the rear window disappears. In real life, I think you can probably roll the rear window up and keep it that way, but it's designed to be like a flow-through Targa kind of thing, and the way they have it constructed is that way. So if you take the roof off, you lose the back window, and obviously the back window needs to be there if you have the roof on. And again, there's like a three-part construction to the roof. I have this kit, so I can speak to the accuracy of this. There's a three-part piece to the roof, and there's sort of a band piece, which is where the roll bar, the integrated roll bar, sits. And if you construct it with the top off, you put a certain combination of pieces in the flying buttresses to show that integrated roll bar. And if you put the roof on, then you put the piece on top of it. So it would really be a matter of you're not gluing probably 4 or 5 pieces into this kit to take the roof on and the roof off and make that like a changeable thing for display. So you're not stuck with building it one way or the other, but you do have to take into consideration how you're going to build it so that it doesn't fall back apart every time you touch it. So at any rate, that, guys, wraps up this video. Like I said, it's a short one, just a few things that we're covering for the end of the month there, and at least a little, sort of push in the right direction from Revell in terms of the summer, something to look forward. We're going to get through this. There is light on the other side. It's just going to take a little time, a little patience, and unfortunately, a little whack to everybody's psyche and morale in the process. But hopefully, we'll be back to normal this fall. Hopefully. I mean, I don't know if it's any difference at all. I drive a truck. I'm at work just as much as I was before. So everybody sits around and talks about how productive their bench is or how boring they are at home. Come on over. I'll teach you how to drive a truck, and you'll never be bored again. See you guys on the other side.